Today I'm building a cushion tray to convert a desk drawer into an armrest. Hey guys, how's it going? This was a Christmas gift I built for my brother-in-law. My wife had noticed he was using his top drawer as an armrest, and we came up with the idea of a removable cushion that you can pop on and off of the drawer as needed. So after some quick design work and SketchUp, I was good to go. To start this project off, I pulled out a scrap sheet of plywood left over from the kitchen build I did over the summer. Those videos are coming soon. And ripped it in half with the circular saw to make the pieces a little bit more manageable. Then over at the table saw, I ripped off the rough cut edge and cut out some strips for the front, back, and sides. Between the miter saw and the crosscut sled back at the table saw, I cut out the two bottom panels to size. Since I was planning on using one of the bottom panels as the cushion base, I knew I needed to cut it a little bit smaller than the actual bottom panel to allow for the fabric thickness. But since this is my first time doing any sort of upholstery, I ended up not cutting it small enough, but more on that later on. With the bottom panels cut to size, I decided I was done with measuring for the day and got the side panels cut to size by marking out the side panels using the bottom panel as a reference and then cutting the piece to length at the miter saw. It potentially would have been more accurate to use my marking knife, but what I didn't know at the time, it was hiding in one of the bags I used to haul tools to work on the kitchen build. So, I know where it is now. With all of the pieces cut to size, it's time for assembly. I set up my pin nailer and started gluing and nailing the front and back panels in place. In hindsight, I probably should have waited to cut the short side panels to length until the long side panels were locked in place. That would have ensured I at least cut the short side panels to the correct length, but luckily it seemed to work out either way. With the side panels nailed in place, I throw a couple clamps down and let it sit for an hour or so to let the glue set up. Then an hour later, I came back, unclamped the tray, and sanded the box down to 220 grit. No, I'm not intentionally using my sleeve as dust collection, there's just a small hole in my dust bag. I could replace the dust bag, but the top result I find is this one on Amazon for $40, which seems ridiculously high to me when I could buy the identical sander for $55, and it would also come with the new dust bag. So, it tends to stop once the bag fills up a bit more, so I'm not going to worry about it right now, if ever. With the sanding done, I move into my basement stain room since it was not nearly as dusty, and start working on the upholstery. I started off with the foam pad, which was easy enough, just drop the plywood on top and cut it to size with a craft knife. Twice, since the foam was only 1 inch thick and I wanted the cushion 2 inches thick. Then I stole my wife's sewing scissors and moved on to the batting, where I gave myself about 6 inches or so around the perimeter of the plywood and cut it to size as well. And then the same thing with the fabric. Now that I somewhat know how Fabricland works, I know I bought way too much of this fabric. So I guess you guys know what fabric I'll be using for the next 30 upholstery projects I'm doing. With everything cut to size, I laid everything out and first tried to wrap the plywood in foam more like a Christmas present, but using staples instead of tape. And then stretching out everything to keep the fabric a little bit tighter. Unfortunately, this left the side folds a fair bit bulkier than I would have liked. So I broke out the sewing scissors again and cut out the extra batting, which helped, but the cushion was still a bit too bulky to fit in this frame. I realized at this point that the bottom of the cushion really doesn't need any fabric, so I pulled out the staples from the bottom of the plywood and stapled it into the side instead, cut off the excess and repeated that process for the remaining two sides, which left this little bit of extra fabric in the corners that I just folded over and stapled down as well. This definitely helped reduce the bulkiness, but I still wasn't able to fit it in the frame as easy. This would have been made a lot easier if I took another blade width off of the plywood cushion base. Now I know. But I definitely wasn't about to take the cushion apart again. I figured since the bottom of the cushion will never be seen, I could tape down the bottom edge of the cushion to keep the fabric from getting caught on the frame, and then with the help of a putty knife, I was able to get the cushion mounted into the frame. I did intend for this just to be a dry fit, though I guess technically it still is since there's no glue. But I initially wanted to finish the interior of the frame as well, but after fighting with the cushion to get it in, I didn't want to risk damaging it trying to get it back out, so it stays. So with the cushion mounted in there, I pre-drilled through the bottom of the frame and screwed the cushion into place. With everything assembled, it's time for finishing. I mask off the edges of the cushion and give the frame a coat of stain to match to the desk, and wipe off the excess a couple minutes later. I believe I ended up giving it 2 coats of stain. Once the stain was dry, I moved on to 3 coats of satin polyacrylic, sanding down with 300 grit in between coats and finishing off the last coat with a 3000 grit sanding pad. Then I pull off the masking tape, throw it in the gift bag, and this project is done. So, this project has had a few problems that I've glossed over so far. I ended up making it a little bit tight for the drawer it's supposed to sit on, which was a mistake on my part. I guess any mistake that I do is a mistake on my part, so that's kind of redundant. What I ended up doing was building the tray exactly the width of the drawer. I should have given myself a little bit more wiggle room there. It also developed a bit of a twist, which if you look back at my first cut, you can tell the plywood did have a bit of a warp to it, but when you look at it just after I assembled it, it was flat. I have a couple theories. The plywood base for the cushion might be compounding the warp that was already in the plywood frame and twisting it more, in which case I might just be able to pull the cushion out, rotate it 180 degrees and put it back in, and that might fix it? I don't know. Maybe. Or, since the interior of the frame is still raw wood, there might be a bit of a moisture disparity between the finished and unfinished sides that are causing the twist. Also, with the benefit of hindsight, I would have made it just a little bit taller. As is, the cushion sinks in a little bit and creates a little bit of a pressure point for your wrist on the edge of the desk. Now that I've completely ragged on it for a little while, I should say that I am actually happy with how this project turned out, even though it doesn't sound like it. And another use for it is actually cropped up. It works quite well, albeit a little bit small, as a lap desk. Had I thought of it at the time, I might have figured out a nicer way of attaching the cushion to the frame, but we'll say that's for version 2. And with that, I'm going to call it a video. Thank you all for watching, and if you like what I'm doing here, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more. If you have any questions or comments, I look forward to reading them in the comment section below. And if you want to see more up-to-date projects, you can follow me on Instagram at JohnTheShriner. Otherwise, I hope to see you in the next video, and have a good one.